I would like to invite His Excellency, the Minister of Youth, Republic of Congo, to set the tone for this meeting. Honorable Hugos Ngolendela, if you could please come up. And once the Honorable Minister completes with his talking points, I would like to invite onto the podium Dr. Kevin Frey, the CEO of Generation Unlimited, Philip from the Rwanda Development Board, the Chief Investment Officer, Dr. Diane Karusisi, the CEO of the Bank of Kigali, Christian Eddie Sabera, CEO of Mara Phones, and Rika from MasterCard. So those who, in that order, I would like you to come onto the podium immediately after the Minister speaks. Thank you.
L'honneur m'est choix de participer à cette table ronde de haut niveau dédiée au secteur privé. En toile de fond, il s'agit de la récurrente problématique de l'insertion socio-économique des jeunes pour favoriser la prise en charge de leur propre destin. À travers mon propos, je voudrais partager avec vous l'expérience de mon pays en la matière. En effet, dans le cadre de sa politique en faveur de l'autonomisation de la jeunesse, le gouvernement de mon pays ne cesse de créer des conditions pour accompagner et faciliter l'insertion professionnelle des jeunes pour obtenir un emploi décent ou s'engager dans l'entrepreneuriat. Pour favoriser l'autonomisation des jeunes, le gouvernement de la République a élaboré et mis en œuvre un plan national de développement, en sigle PND, axé sur la diversification économique. Dans ce PND, la jeunesse occupe une place de choix, en ce qu'elle est considérée comme un acteur essentiel du développement socio-économique de notre pays. À titre d'exemple, le gouvernement vient d'adopter le 16 août 2022 la loi portant attribution du label Start-up du numérique et de l'innovation technologique en République du Congo, ayant pour objet d'encadrer et de faciliter la création des start-up. S'agissant du cadre institutionnel, le gouvernement du Congo a mis en place plusieurs structures d'appui techniques et financiers pour soutenir les initiatives des jeunes, parmi lesquelles le Fonds national pour l'employabilité et l'apprentissage, en sigle FONEA, placé sous la tutelle de mon département ministériel. Ce fonds a pour mission principale de promouvoir l'employabilité et l'apprentissage, les formations qualifiantes et l'auto-entrepreneuriat, et financé à partir de la taxe versée sur les entreprises formelles, l'accompagnement des porteurs de projets, la formation continue, qualifiante et de l'apprentissage. Et nous avons ensuite l'Agence congolaise pour l'emploi, en sigle ACPE, structure ayant pour mission essentielle de réguler et dynamiser le marché du travail en République du Congo par des solutions innovantes et durables. Nous avons ensuite l'Agence congolaise pour la création d'entreprises, un guichet unique qui a pour mission d'informer et conseiller les entrepreneurs sur les formalités de création d'entreprises, tenir le fichier des entreprises créées et susciter et favoriser la création d'entreprises au Congo. Nous avons ensuite l'Agence de développement des petites et moyennes entreprises, instrument technique du gouvernement qui accompagne et encadre les jeunes porteurs de projets et innovateurs dans leur démarche de création ou de développement d'entreprise. Et ensuite, nous avons le Fonds d'impulsion, de garantie et d'accompagnement, en sigle FIGA, qui a pour mission de mettre au profit des promoteurs d'idées, des projets et des chefs d'entreprise des services non financiers et financiers nécessaires à la création et au développement de leurs entreprises. À cet effet, il intervient à travers 3 piliers essentiels: l'impulsion, la garantie et l'accompagnement. Et sixièmement, la bourse de sous-traitance et de partenariat, instrument du gouvernement chargé de mettre en lien les grandes et petites entreprises en quête d'opportunités. La mise en place de cet outil s'inscrit dans l'ambition du gouvernement de faire du secteur privé congolais un moteur de croissance. Aux côtés de toutes ces structures techniques, le gouvernement du Congo a mis en place plusieurs projets et programmes d'accompagnement des jeunes, cette fois-ci en prenant compte les différentes catégories des jeunes afin de répondre à leurs besoins avec les solutions sur mesure et adaptées. C'est pour ça que nous avons là-bas chez nous un projet qu'on appelle l'Isungi, le projet Telama, le concours national des plans des affaires. Et par ailleurs, le secteur privé congolais joue sa partition dans l'accompagnement des efforts du gouvernement à travers la mise en place des incubateurs et accélérateurs d'entreprises ainsi que la mise en œuvre des programmes d'appui à l'insertion professionnelle des jeunes. Comme on peut le constater, le gouvernement du Congo n'a de cesse de multiplier des initiatives en faveur de la promotion du secteur privé pour inciter les jeunes à s'engager dans l'entrepreneuriat. L'esprit de la créativité, d'innovation et d'imagination inhérente à la couche juvénile est précieux atout que nos gouvernements respectifs se doivent de capitaliser pour bâtir des nations résilientes et émergentes. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Because we have a time crunch, I'm going to rush us through very quickly. So may I call to the podium Dr. Kevin Frey, CEO of Generation Unlimited, Dr. Diane Kurisisi, the CEO of the Bank of Kigali, Christian Masoji, the CEO of Mobile Ecosystems, and Rika from MasterCard Foundation. I heard you. So, good morning. I have a very even panel, huh? 2 men and 2 women. Well, welcome. Really exciting to have you here from the private sector and to have this conversation with yourselves. I think we all heard what the minister said. The Honorable Minister talked about the opportunities that they're trying to create in Congo for young people, the enabling environment through policy creation, regulation, etc., supporting ease of setting up businesses and startups, etc., so that young people can have as much opportunity as possible, using TVET organized institutions for skilling and so on and so forth. So I want to start off with Dr. Kevin Frey, who is from Generation Unlimited with UNICEF, a UN body that works very closely with government and private sectors. So Kevin, could you just really tell us about Generation Unlimited, which is the first public-private youth partnership in the world, we believe, which has a mission to skill young people and to connect them to opportunities for employment, entrepreneurship, and social impact. It would be good to hear from you why partnerships are central to the work that GenU is doing today, and if you could talk about some of the best practices that you have seen that Generation Unlimited has taken forward with some of the programs that we've been putting forward. For example, Passport to Earning, which we're setting up here in Rwanda, has already been launched in countries like India, Yoma, some of our environmental programs. And then lastly, what would be your call to action for private sector partners?
Okay, thanks, Nadi, and thanks everyone for taking the time to be here with us this morning. As Nadi mentioned, so Generation Unlimited was founded as a global public-private youth partnership. So at the core of our mission is the idea that public institutions have to work hand in hand with the private sector if we want to accomplish our mission of connecting young people to opportunities for employment and entrepreneurship. Why is that the case? I think everyone in this room knows the answer. The private sector is, of course, the demand side of the equation. And we have to connect supply with demand. And right now, education systems, training systems are not doing that in an optimal way. And why is that? A lot of the time, private sector is not talking with the public sector. So training systems aren't deeply engaged in working with the private sector. One of the things that GenU does on an ongoing basis every day is bring those private sector leaders together with the public sector, develop systems where that feedback loop between supply and demand and that matching can actually happen. At the global level, we have leaders of some of the world's largest companies who are getting involved in this, whether that be Microsoft, Unilever, PwC, Accenture, Capgemini. And these leaders are actually engaging their companies in solving this equation. You asked about best practice, Nadi. One of the things they're doing, and I think this is a way the private sector can really start to help solve some of this mismatch that I was referring to, and that is by taking their training content that typically sits behind what I would often call a corporate firewall. So they only train their employees. So once we hire you, we train you in what it means to be a PwC employee. But they've got amazing, rich training content, and what we've called, and we actually published a paper in Harvard Business Review last year, calling on corporations to take their training from behind those corporate firewalls and make them available for free to young people working with public systems hand in hand. So take that world-class training, get it in the hands of young people, and it's a win-win for everybody, because then the private sector is going to have a cadre of trained young people coming in. So this is one of the examples, I think, Nadi, about how the private sector can work with public sector, use the two assets, use what public and private are best at to come together to serve young people.
Thank you very much. Before I go to Diane, sorry, Philip, I forgot to call you. Philip from the Rwanda Development Board. If you could please join us on the panel. My sincere apologies. Okay. Okay, Diane, I'm going to come to you. I understand that the Bank of Kigali is, investing in promising young entrepreneurs. This is an area that you're focusing on. I understand you have a program called the Urumuru Initiative, which really is focusing on youth-led enterprises by giving them access to interest-free loans and advisory services. So really, as a profit-oriented corporation, could you enlighten us why Bank of Kigali has decided to invest in young people, provide this, and why these loans are interest-free, and what's the outcome of this initiative?
Thank you, and thank you for having me on this panel this morning. As you say, we are a profit-oriented company. But we thrive on growing businesses. When businesses don't grow, we don't grow. We can provide our services to businesses. And I think we wanted to take a long-term view with the understanding that youth-led companies, or even small companies today, might become our top clients in 10 years, in 15 years. And we want them to have the right standards, the right governance, etc. And that's why I think we set up this initiative. The outcome has been, quite positive, with many of these companies that have grown, from where they were a few years ago to another level. So this is very encouraging. And what we do is, as much as at school, I think people can learn theoretically what is accounting, what is management, etc. But when they have businesses, we want these entrepreneurs, as to understand, of course, their products, but also understand, the governance. How do you run a business? And this knowledge cannot be only theoretical. They actually learn on the job, and we want them to apply this knowledge from, the partnerships we have, on, business advisory services, how they can restructure their accounting, how they can manage their staff, how they can improve their products, and even analytically understanding what are the drivers of their businesses. So I believe that that's very important. And also, we want to train them on how you work with a bank. When you have a small business, what a bank expects from you. And we give them a glimpse into our decision-making processes. When the company is applying for a facility, what do our back office, our credit people want to see? I think when they have this understanding of expectations, they're able to be better prepared and to grow, their businesses. So that's what we've been doing. And what we found that some of these businesses started with interest-free loans, but came back with, bigger facilities, and you were earning some good money from these businesses, especially that they understand what is expected of them from the bank. And we believe that this is the right way to do things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting long-term view. Makes a lot of sense. We say Rome wasn't built in a day. We say Rwanda wasn't built in a day either. Yeah. Philip, I'll come to you now. Philip works with the Rwanda Development Board. They have invested greatly in establishing business ecosystems that support young entrepreneurs and startups to grow and to prosper. I think more like some of the work that the Bank of Kigali is doing. So Philip, if you could share with us some of the examples through which investors decide to provide investments to young people, and how you skill these young people so that they can have more productivity and positive economic returns. And what are the kind of policies that you have in the Rwanda Development Board or the mechanisms that you've put in place to enable this to happen?
Thank you very much for the intro and for giving us the opportunity to be on this panel. Indeed, as you mentioned, RDB is part of this whole ecosystem of trying to see how do we create an enabling environment, especially for the youth to be employed in some of the areas that we think would add value to their lives. And as you know, RDB, being an institution that is in charge of private sector development, definitely skills a very core part of our mandate, and trying to see how do we make sure that the private sector that we facilitate has the right skills to be able really to progress and develop their businesses. And as such, that's why RDB has the Chief Skills Office, whose mandate really is to support the private sector in so many ways. One is really to support in skilling, reskilling, but also upskilling. But the other interventions that we do is also to support in some areas where we see that there's a huge gap, in terms of skills development, whether in the tourism sector. We have, partners such as MasterCard Foundation that we work with very closely. We work with different business accelerator and incubation houses to be able really to see how we can address the gaps that we have on the market. But just to give you an idea, some of the initiatives that we've facilitated are more strategic, with the intent really of, addressing the gaps that we have in specific areas. And as such, some of the key projects that we've been able to facilitate and attract are more or less in the sectors that we're really trying to develop as a country. For example, if you look at BPO, business process outsourcing, we know when you venture into BPO, the number of people you employ is going to be much higher compared to some of other sectors. And that's why we've been able to facilitate some companies such as CCI Global, which is a UK-based company that is, will be setting up very soon. and planning to employ up to 2,000 Rwandans. So you can imagine that's quite a very sizable number. If you look at companies like Tech Experts, this is a global IT solutions organization that does provide business and IT solution services, and their plan is also to employ up to 1,000 youth here in Rwanda. So you can see that some of these initiatives that we're currently undertaking is really to, even motivate our youth to be able to train with these institutions, get the necessary skills for them to be onboarded into the companies that we're attracting here in Rwanda. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Philip, telling us about how the RDB works and how you work together with the private sector and public sector in terms of building this ecosystem for young people. I'll move on to Christian of Mobile Ecosystems, which I understand is a digital platform of integrated services in the form of mobile apps, and you're working really to support the digital transition on the African continent and, of course, digital transformation across the African continent. Could you share your own experience on being a startup in Africa and what it requires to succeed?
Thank you first for inviting us here. That is a great opportunity to give a light to a new company. We are a startup from France, an ICT company. So I'm an African native, and it was really important after working more than 20 years in mobile phone industry to do something to help all the Africa to do this digital transition. We talk about youth. What is really important to understand, we can say to everybody, okay, let's go, you by yourself. So create your company, but they need tools. What is the most important in order to succeed is to have the right tools in your hands. If you look at what is the condition to access to those financial possibilities, to loans, is to have KYC. So your idea is to say there are a lot of different people that are already acting in development, around SDG and so on. So we believe that if we build something where everybody can join, combine, to create maybe the first global collaborative platform in Africa, saying that one guy doing something good in Senegal can help maybe and support directly someone in Congo or wherever, and it's just a question of sharing instantly, knowledge. So let's create this platform, bringing all the different verticals from healthcare, employment, financial inclusion in one, and giving one unique identity that gives KYC to those youth people. And we built it in a smartphone that is available at a very low cost price, but that is very performant with NFC for contactless payment, all the things that can move those people from informal to formal, because we talk about things like regulation, and we need those people to enter this world that is not accessible at the moment. So let's make it accessible anywhere, anytime, for everybody. Important word is Ubuntu, because we are one amongst the multitude. And this is what we need to understand. If we can connect people, understanding, we can interact by having different solutions that are combined and offering the largest possibility to everyone. That's the game.
Thank you very much, Christian. Really interesting, this principle of Ubuntu. I am because you are. Of course, last but not least, I'm going to the MasterCard Foundation. Very inspiring journey that you're on with Young Africa Works. It would be interesting to understand the inspiration behind Young Africa Works. Why that? I think it's an excellent tagline, Young Africa Works. If you could share with us what was the inspiration behind the focus on Africa in particular, and also which are some of your most effective programs, or which are some of the most effective sectors where you find employment opportunities for young people?
Thank you, and thank you for being right on MasterCard Foundation, because sometimes we get confused with the MasterCard. The Young Africa Work Strategy is a strategy we launched in 2018 with an ambition to enable 30 million young people in Africa, to enable them into work opportunities by 2030, and the majority being young women. And this really came after a decade of implementation of our program at the foundation. And what became clear for us was the need for us to look at what would be the next challenge that we would tackle. And really, without a lot of debate, it became very clear that one of the biggest challenge and opportunity is on the African continent, where we have seen a big bulge of growth of young people, and the ability to enable them into work opportunities, to skilling, through entrepreneurship, and the panelists have been talking about it, is our single focus. And so maybe to speak to some of the work that we've been doing, and I'll speak to Rwanda, where we started the program in 2018, and with a focus for the last 4 years into the tourism and hospitality sector, which is a growing sector in Rwanda, and therefore a sector that we at the foundation are also focusing on. Some of the interesting findings or learnings that we've had is the importance of working indeed with the private sector to enable young people to have the right skills. When we started the program, the first thing we did was to really work with private sector to try and understand what the needs were for their employees. And what we heard from them is that they didn't have the right skills coming onto the market. And so when we tried to find out, is it, which training schools are you working with? What they told us was like, actually, that's the problem. We don't think the training schools are providing the right skills. And so we partnered, one of the partners we have, and we work in a consortium of different partners, is a school, Vatel, I'll mention it. And what's interesting about their model as they came into the industry was to provide dual learning. And this basically means that for half the time in school they spend, half the time is in school and half the time is in industry. And this they begin from their first year. And what we've seen as a result of that is that 100% of the students transition into work before 6 months after they're done. And really what this has shown us is that a lot of the skills that you can't really just get at school. You need the private sector on board to be able to advance with you. And I think Philip talked about another partnership, if I may, as an example. We worked with the RDB and Education First, and this is an institution that provides English training. And in the tourism industry, English and communication, we know, is a very important skill. And so what we saw is that even just by providing communication skills, English, it builds a level of confidence. And we've seen an increase in terms of promotions, about 48% actually of a survey we did. I think we just completed 7,000 have gone through the program. And what we've heard, 48% have received either a new job offer, a promotion, or a salary increase. And really, a lot of that means that even for the, and this would not have been possible without the private sector providing the space, sometimes the devices, the connectivity. This is an online program for their staff to actually be able to attend the program. And if that hadn't been provided, then we wouldn't have been able to have these young people spending a lot of time. They're really, really yearning to learn, and they can grow, but it requires the private sector to be involved. And so I think that's really what has been our experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I've been told that we have to stop at exactly 10 minutes to the top of the hour. So instead of boring everybody to try and summarize the eloquence that has come out of this panel, I'm going to ask each one of you in 1 or 2 sentences. Kevin, in 1 or 2 sentences, really, what would be your call to action for private sector, for public sector, and for the youth themselves? I think for this equation to be effective, as Kevin started off by saying, with the public-private youth partnership, that the youth are at the core, and that we have to listen to their voices and to hear what it is that they want and where their pain points are. So I'd like to hear from each one of you, what would be your call to action based on what you have shared on this panel, for all of us to come together to make the work that you're all doing a great success. Thank you. We will start in the same order. Thank you.
Which gives me even less time to think about 2 sentences. I guess the first thing I would say, kind of just referring back to my earlier remarks, is that the private sector needs to get involved in the training of young people. We are not, oh, 2 sentences. So please get involved, take your world-class training and take it to the masses for free. Work with public education systems and get it out there. Second thing, take a chance on talent. I know I'm going to take 2 more sentences. And we heard this from young people, huge cheer in the room of all the young people yesterday. They don't have the experience. Someone's got to take a chance on them. So identify talent, take a chance on young people.
Thank you very much. Diane?
So I think that the tone is set by Kevin. The private sector really has to bet on our young people. This is the future. And if we don't, we'll jeopardize the growth of the continent.
Thank you. Philip? Was it? Yeah, Philip.
Thank you. To me, I think my parting shot is that public-private partnership is key. That if we really want to identify talent, grow talent, I think the only solution is really to enhance, the partnership between government and the private sector. We've seen that in Rwanda this has worked. If we can triple the efforts, then definitely we're going to see more positive results in our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian?
I believe we need to build a kind of consumer-centric ecosystem of partnership, involving public, private, but also, those organizations, civil organizations that are doing well around SDG. And I think at the end, that will be the key to succeed. Support.
Thank you. Rika?
I'll use one sentence that young people we met told us. They said, if you believe in us, they will believe in us. So if people in this room believe in the young people,
Yeah.
even those outside of this room will believe in them. So let's believe in them.
Can you give, yeah. Thank you. You started the clapping yourself. Thank you very much to this very esteemed panel, and thank you very much to this amazing audience. I apologize that we didn't have enough time for me to take questions from the floor, but I hope that you've benefited from the wisdom that has come out of this panel, and I hope that the calls to action are ones that we will take to action as we leave this room. Thank you.